We are in November, and as we prepare to enter the last couple of months of 2024, I thought it was about time that I shared with you some of the incredible books that I have been reading this year, the key takeaways, the things that I have kind of gleaned from them, and also how they have applied to the life that I lead here in South Italy. So, today's episode is going to focus on one of the books that I actually read at the very beginning of 2024 called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. I will put a link to the book in the show notes below if you want to go and get a copy, which I highly recommend that you do, because this book unpacks exactly what ego is. Because it is true that wherever you are, ego is too. And our ego is essentially an unhealthy belief in our own importance. And ego can rear its head in any situation of our lives and often does. And this book basically unpacks what ego is, the kind of things you need to pay attention to when it comes to ego, and also how ego plays out in different aspects of our lives. Now, a few key nuggets that I took from this book, namely in part one, which was called Aspire. Ryan Holiday writes, if you want to be more than a flash in the pan, you must be prepared to focus on the long term. Now, I thought this was particularly poignant because anything that is worth doing takes time. Yet our ego wants us to achieve immediate success, recognition, and acknowledgement. But that kind of acknowledgement is never sustainable over a long period of time. You need to put your foundation in place. And your foundation comes from learning, from building your skills, from getting really, really super clear on what it is that you want to achieve. And this is essentially what this part of the book is about, because ego is not interested in long term success. Ego is about the here and the now, and wanting to immediately receive recognition for what it is that you're doing. But if you look at some of the biggest businesses in the world, they took time to develop. They didn't immediately receive the recognition and hype that maybe they have today. It took them years to arrive at that point. So you have to have some kind of long term focus if you are working on something. And I think this is where things like social media trip people up. People join platforms on social media and immediately think they are going to get the success and following of people who have been on the platforms for like 10 plus years. It doesn't happen in that way. Although there are certain platforms on social media that, you may stand more chance of becoming viral on, those kinds of platforms are not necessarily as valuable as the ones which take time to build a loyal and engaged following. And so this is a principle that I think is super, super important. And I think as well, like, you have to be prepared to have months and weeks of silence and not receiving much back for the work that you're putting in order to really build something incredible at the very end. And this is something that I can definitely apply to my own experience at the moment, building this Ms. Brittany brand, pivoting, as I spoke about in my last episode, to now really focus more on showcasing real expat life here in South Italy, and realizing that, I have to focus on the long term and not be looking for immediate instant gratification. So this is something that I think is very relevant for today's society, because so many of us are impatient and so many of us are not prepared to wait for what is truly worth waiting for. The second takeaway for me from the first part of this book was a quote that was put in this book from Lao Tzu. I'm really not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but the quote is exceptional. Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. I find this to be exceptional because there are so many people who are quick to tell you how much they know about their experience, what they've done, what they've achieved in their life, but they are not necessarily the most intelligent people or the people who have the best life experience. Essentially, they're not necessarily the people you should be listening to. The people that you need to pay attention to are the ones who don't speak as much, the ones who are more selective about the things they talk about and when they talk about them. Those are the people that have real knowledge and experience of life. And I think I can also apply it as well to money. Like you could easily transfer this quote to talk about money. Those who have money do not show it. Those who show it don't really have money. Like it's this, because like I see it here in Italy, people dress in like designer outfits and it's really blatant and obvious. You know, the logos are very visible and it's almost like people want you to know that they had the money to buy these items. But those people are not necessarily wealthy people. Wealthy people tend to dress in ways that are more discreet. They don't feel the need to wear like heavily labeled designer goods. Sure, the shirt that they're wearing might look plain, but it probably cost you more than your month's salary, but you'd never know it just from looking at it. And I really value this approach because when you have it, you don't need to prove yourself to anybody. Those who are trying to prove it to other people don't really have it. And it was just such a great quote that I could find really relatable to so many different aspects of life. But as I spoke about in a couple of episodes ago, talk is cheap. And, you know, if you are working on something, silence is what really matters. You need to stay quiet and focus on what you're working on because you do otherwise convince yourself that you have already done the work when maybe the truth is somewhat different if all you're doing is talking about it and you're not actually taking the action. Another part that of the book that I really found interesting was talking about restraining yourself. Ryan writes, those who have subdued their ego understand that it doesn't degrade you when others treat you poorly, it degrades them. Now, I think I can relate to this a lot because when people have done wrong to me here in Italy, I have this instant reaction to want to defend myself, to want to prove to myself that, you know, they were wrong in their behavior, in their character, in what they did. But actually, that is my ego fighting back because when you've calmed your ego, you realize that when people treat you badly, it is never, ever a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them and what is going on in their lives. It is never, ever about you. And that is something that I think I'm still working on and I need to remind myself of more often. But it is very, very true. Like people respond in ways in life that you cannot control, but it does not mean it is a reflection of you. And that is something you must always, always remember. If somebody is treating you badly, it doesn't mean that you need to respond in the same way. You can just let their actions speak for themselves and let your actions speak for you. Part two of the book focuses on success. And there was something really, really amazing that I wrote down from this book under the category of what's important to you. And it is this: all of us waste precious life doing things we don't like to prove ourselves to people we don't respect and to get things we don't want. How powerful is that? And how true is that? We often do things in life. This is usually in a work context, I think, where, you know, we don't really feel 100% passionate about it. Maybe we don't respect the people we work for, our boss, our colleagues, whatever it might be. But we feel the need to prove ourselves and we go above and beyond to show that we are good and competent at what we do. And, you know, we want to get respect from people, but in the end, it's not necessarily what you truly want within yourself. And I think you know it. Like, you know, life is so precious. And I really think when you're waking up on a Monday and you're like, oh, I've got work, and you have that heavy sense of dread, you are not living your life. Like you are going through the kind of steps of supporting yourself and surviving, but you're not living. And, you know, those are the moments when we are trying to prove ourselves to our boss, to our colleagues. We're really good at what we do, and we want people to pat us on the back and tell us we're good. But essentially, we don't enjoy what we're doing. And so you enter into this kind of empty void of receiving acknowledgement for something that you don't really care much about. And I think, you know, there's a lot of moments that we can fall into that trap in our lives, particularly if we are doing a job that we no longer feel passionate about. Absolutely. There was another really important part within this section that says, beware the disease of me. Ego needs honors in order to be validated. Confidence is able to wait and focus on the task at hand, regardless of external recognition. So, this ties in really beautifully to focusing on your long term goals. I think, some people in life need to be told that they are making the right decision if they have a big choice to make, or that what they're producing is fantastic in order to feel like they are on the right path. But when you truly believe in what it is that you are doing or creating or putting out into the world, you don't need people to tell you that what you're doing is good. You don't need people to tell you that you're on the right path, because internally within yourself, you can feel that for yourself. And I think this is like a really, really important thing, because I think, if we always allow ourselves to be dictated by what people around us think and feel, I feel like we are never in control of our lives. And so many people are caught up in that trap. They allow the behavior, the words, the comments of other people to dictate their feelings and the progress that they make in whatever aspect of life they're focusing on. And that is the problem. Like, when you are sure within yourself that what you are doing is right and you have that inner confidence, you kind of drown out the noise of people's comments around you and you focus on what it is you're working on, because you know within yourself that you're onto something great and you don't need other people to tell you that for you. The third part of this book focuses on failure. And there was something within this part that I could really relate to, particularly with my YouTube channel. And it is always love. And he writes, a better response to an attack or a slight or something you don't like, love. And this is something that I've really honed into on my YouTube channel, because YouTube is an incredible platform, but it does attract a lot of trolls, particularly if you comment about the reality of a situation and people don't want to hear about it. And so now, if I choose to allow a comment that could be perceived as controversial on my channel, I will always send that person love and light, because when people post those kinds of troll like comments, they are seeking a response. They want to kind of get to you. They want you to feel riled or irritated by what it is that they're saying. And they certainly do not want to receive your love. Yet it is one of the most powerful ways that you can respond to things that you don't agree with or that are designed to hurt you. Send love, because you know what? You have to feel pity and empathy for your enemies. That's it. Because people who have that kind of mindset are not in a good place in their lives. And that is something that you must always remember. It's never about you, it is always about them. And it's really interesting because tied into this is a question that Ryan poses. Are we going to be miserable just because other people are? I mean, how wonderful is this, right? Like, just because other people might be miserable around you, negative, despondent, not appreciating what it is that you're creating or doing or saying, whatever context it may be in, are you really going to allow yourself to be influenced by that just because other people feel that way? It's quite profound, but so many people do allow social media and trolls and people like that to affect them and their confidence. But there's a really interesting thing. Hate defers blame. It makes someone else responsible and is a distraction. Now, I feel like that is included in there because essentially, when you respond to something with hate, you are taking away the responsibility from yourself. So if something triggers you, if you are not happy that you've read something, you've heard something, you've watched something, and it's triggered something within you, and you reply with hate, you are deferring that responsibility from looking at what it is within you that has been affected by that and why, and kind of digging deep with that and trying to resolve it and understand it better. You are deferring that and you are distracting yourself by blaming the other person for allowing you to feel that way. And it is this, and it's so interesting. And, I feel like to end this episode is to focus on love, because as Ryan says, love is right there, egoless, open, positive, vulnerable, peaceful, and productive. And I feel like that is what we need to focus on. reading this book really opened my eyes to ego, because I could recognize myself in many of the situations that he wrote about in the book. And I really believe that if you've ever wondered how you can better control your reaction to situations or your response to things, this is a fantastic book that you can read. And it just gets you to really pay attention to your mind and what it is that you're thinking and feeling in any given moment. And I think that is probably one of the most important things to remember. I'll see you in the next episode.